The calamity is not that you are broken, it is that you believe you are. Like a man staring at his reflection in a cracked mirror and concluding that his face is fractured, you have mistaken an image for your essence and a passing thought for a permanent truth. You are taught to see yourself as a project under construction, an emergency needing constant repair, a machine whose parts squeak with inadequacy. And so you oil the gears, tighten the bolts, repaint the surface, and wonder why the engine keeps coughing. Here is the rude and liberating shock. There is no engine apart from the movement of the whole cosmos through you. You are not a mechanism to be fixed. You are an unfolding, like a wave that cannot be detached from the sea and still be called a wave. When you stop trying to become, you begin to be. And in being, the whole anxious theater of self-improvement collapses like a paper stage in a gust of wind. Consider how belief behaves. Belief is a costume. We put it on and forget that underneath we are naked, which is to say, natural, original, unembarrassed by our own existence. Belief says there's something wrong. Awareness says look. When you really look, the drama quiets. The story loosens its grip. The urge to edit reality gives way to the simple wonder that there is reality at all. The belief in brokenness is inherited, like an heirloom chest that everyone politely pretends to admire. We open its lid and find guilt, shame, and the old maps, charts of how to get from imperfection to perfection, as if perfection were a city with a railway timetable. But the maps were drawn by the same belief that sold you the chest. They always lead you away from the only place you can be, here. When I say nothing is broken, I do not mean that pain is an illusion or that sorrow is a mistake. Pain and sorrow are the weather of the heart, and the heart, like the sky, is no to harmed by clouds. The mistaken belief is that weather equals sky. The belief says, if only I could banish the clouds, I would be blue forever. But the blue includes the clouds, and even the storm is the sky's own gesture. In this sense, your tears and your laughter are equally you, as the crashing wave and the polished lagoon are equally the sea. You are not a problem to be solved, but a mystery to be lived, so intimate with everything that even your efforts to be separate are part of your belonging. Let us move more slowly. The pressure to be otherwise is the restless pulse of the ego, the itch that scratches itself with plans and procedures. The ego loves the word if. If I meditate correctly, if I read the right book, if I fix my diet, my posture, my childhood, then I will arrive. Arrive where? At the place we never left. We build ladders to climb into a sky that is already overhead. We draw water from a well while standing in the rain. And because the ladder creaks and the bucket leaks, we blame our technique. We never suspect the deeper joke, that the ladder and the bucket were props in a play, and the play was called Striving for the Present. Imagine your life as a river. It has curves, stones, sunlit ripples, and sudden dark pools. Belief says the river is wrong because it is not a straight canal, so you rush to dredge, dam, and redirect, turning the flow into something predictable, but in doing so, you have not improved the river, you have suffocated it. To fix yourself is often to drain the vitality from the stream. The river knows how to meet the mountain. It wears it down gently, one soft insistence at a time. Likewise, your life, left to its living, finds its path. What interrupts it is the idea that there is a superior path drawn somewhere else by wiser hands, and your task is to conform. You may say, but surely I must grow. Growth, yes. Correction, no. A tree does not fix its crooked branch, it grows another, and the whole shape becomes its artistry. The asymmetry is its signature. Real growth is not from a blueprint, but from a root. It springs from the living fact of being what you are. The rose opens by the sun's persuasion, not by self-dissection, and when the petals fall, they do not fall as failures, but as the natural generosity of a completed gesture. Your errors, if we insist on the word, are the fallen petals that feed the soil from which you continue. Notice the subtlety. To say nothing was broken is not to impose a new commandment, thou shalt never seek change. It is to reveal that change flows naturally when you are no longer at war with yourself. The paradox is delicious. When you abandon improvement as a crusade, improvement happens as a play. The muscles relax, the brow unfurrows, the heart, no longer policed by ideals, begins to speak in its small, practical voice. You find you are kinder without trying, attentive without effort, awake without alarm. Like a cat that naps in the exact patch of sun, your being reorients to warmth. So where did this belief in brokenness come from? Its roots are in the mirror mind, the faculty that not only sees but reflects upon seeing. Reflection is a marvelous tool. It allows us to compose music, build bridges, tell stories. But when the mirror forgets it is a mirror, it becomes a judge. It compares the reflection with a fantasy and declares a verdict of inadequacy. This mind of comparison measures the living with the dead, measuring a laughing child against a photograph of a smiling statue. It punishes motion for not being still. It punishes you for being alive. I invite you as we go on to feel the texture of this invitation, not an order from a stern superintendent of the soul, but a gentle suggestion from the same place where breath arises before you think to breathe. Suppose we look again without the armor of belief and discover that what we called brokenness was the innocently human habit of mistaking the echo for the voice. Then the entire enterprise of fixing begins to loosen, and in that looseness, life begins to sing. Let us peer into the workshop of the fixer. On the benches lie tools with noble names: discipline, routine, optimization. They glint under bright lights, and on the far wall hangs a calendar filled with red circles promising future salvation. You pick up the tools, you try to fine-tune your mood, adjust your worth, recalibrate your being. Yet what you truly adjust is the posture of the mask you wear to please the mirror. The tools are not the trouble. They are simply misplaced. They were made for shaping the world, not for hammering your heart into a predetermined mold. When you turn the tool inward with the spirit of suspicion, you turn the heart into a factory. And factories are very good at producing goods, but poor at recognizing the goodness already present. See how belief behaves like a host who distrusts their guests. It rearranges the furniture continuously, forever dissatisfied with the placement of chairs. Meanwhile, the guests are standing outside with flowers, waiting to be welcomed. Sensations, moods, the morning breeze through the window, 1,000 uninvited joys. The host cannot greet them because the room is never ready. This is the tragedy of perpetual fixing. It postpones hospitality to the present. Life rings the bell and finds us in our apron, muttering, "Just a moment." The moment leaves. Another knocks. Just a moment. Decades pass in preparation for an arrival that can only occur in the unprepared. There is a quieter art, the art of reception. It is the way the lake receives the moon, without effort, without moralizing, by being still enough to reflect and deep enough not to grasp. Reception is not passivity, it is intimacy. It is the recognition that what you are looking for is what is looking. In reception, the mind still functions, the body walks, the voice speaks, but the secret strain relaxes. You are no longer defending a castle. You are hosting a festival where the host is also the guest and the music plays itself. If I speak in metaphors, it is because the intellect loves to classify while the heart recognizes. A metaphor slips under the door the intellect has locked. Consider the ocean once more, for it is the emblem of non-fixation. The ocean does not repair the wave that. It collapses upon the shore. It collapses beautifully. It retreats. It gathers. It returns. In this rhythm, there is no failure, only movement. Translate this into your days. A morning of confusion, an afternoon of clarity, an evening of tenderness. None of these requires repair. Each requires recognition. To recognize is to re-know, know again what you secretly know already, that you belong to the movement more than to any particular shape it takes. You may object, but my life contains genuine mistakes, harmful habits, unfinished responsibilities. Precisely. And what addresses them most skillfully, a clenched fist around the self or a clear gaze? Clarity is ethical by nature. When you see a pattern without condemnation, it reveals its own mechanics. The habit loses its glamour. The unfinished work asks to be completed, not as a punishment, but as an act of play. You discover that doing the dishes is a form of bathing the hands, paying a debt is bringing balance to a dance, apologizing is returning an instrument to tune. None of this requires the premise, "I am broken." It requires attention, simple, compassionate attention. Let us walk through a small story. A woman carries a heavy pack up a hill, sweating and cursing her weakness. Halfway up, a stranger tells her, "Your pack is full of stones." She opens it and finds indeed nothing but rocks. Beliefs she never chose but inherited. Be perfect, be useful, be admired, be unafraid. She asks, "Which shall I throw away first?" The stranger laughs. "Whichever you notice most." She tosses a stone and feels lighter. The hill remains, the body still strains, but the ascent now has air in it. Throwing out a stone does not fix her, it reveals her. She does not become worthy by reducing weight. She discovers the worthiness that was carrying the pack all along. Here is another angle. The belief in brokenness thrives on a false timeline. It projects happiness into a future where the self is finally acceptable. Meanwhile, the only consciousness you will ever have is the flickering candle of now. To defer your acceptance of yourself is to defer your life. This is a subtle cruelty we practice upon ourselves in good faith. We pledge allegiance to a mirage that keeps receding as we pursue it. When you stop, the mirage evaporates, and what remains is the ordinary miracle: breath moving in and out, light rising to meet the eye, the sensation of being seated in a chair that, until now, you were too busy to feel. One might ask, what replaces the project of fixing? Nothing replaces it in the way the sky does not replace the storm when the storm passes. A space opens, a spaciousness in which doing flows without the tyrant of why. You still change jobs, leave a tired relationship, enter a new adventure, learn a skill, but the change is rooted in listening rather than in self-prosecution. Listening will carry you further than force. If you attend deeply, you may find that what seemed like laziness was fear, and fear dissolves in the warmth of attention. You may find what seemed like apathy was grief, and grief, when welcomed, moves like rain through a thirsty field. This is the paradox that gentle seeing delivers. The more you allow, the more responsive you become. Allowing is not refusing to act, it is refusing to panic. It is the ship's captain who knows that to yank the wheel is to capsize. A steady hand on a living sea is both firmness and yield. In you, this steady hand is a felt sense of sufficiency. This, too, is part of me. And from sufficiency, decisions are clean. They do not leave a bitter aftertaste of self-betrayal. I will say it plainly. The fixation with fixing is a mistrust of life. It presumes that the ground of being is hostile and that only constant vigilance can keep the chaos at bay. But look at a newborn sleeping. Does being need our management to breathe? Or look at the trees on a windy evening. Each branch improvises, each leaf shivers in its own way, and yet the forest holds its shape without a central committee. The pulse that moves the leaf moves you. To align with it is not to abandon responsibility. It is to stop arguing with the rhythm that already carries your steps. Let us become practical in the simplest possible way. Begin by noticing the compulsion to label experience as success or failure. When you catch the mind stamping a moment with its approval or disapproval, do nothing to stop it, just notice. The noticing is already a shift from identification to awareness. The way hearing a tune played badly reveals the tune itself. In practice, this might mean pausing at the sink, feeling the water, the shape of your hands, the temperature of the air, the softness or brittleness of your mood. Do not correct the mood. Feel it as a color in the room. That is the first and most radical act, hospitality. Second, let the breath be your teacher. Not the breath you stage manage from a book, but the breath occurring now. Watch how it arrives without permission and departs without apology. When anxiety quickens it, notice that quickening as a weather pattern. When calm slows it, notice the wide horizon. Breath is continuity wearing change as its necklace. If you sit with it for a minute or two, several times a day, you begin to sense the subtle message, you are carried. This message is the dissolving of the workshop's feverish atmosphere. You cannot fix what does not need repair. You can accompany what requests company. Third, practice non-heroic honesty. This is not confession in search of absolution, it is intimacy with actuality. If you are tired, say, I am tired. If you are frightened, say, I am frightened. Then let the body show you what tiredness and fear do in their native habitat. You might lie down, you might call a friend, you might do the dreaded task with a small modification that makes it human. This smallness is a secret door. Grand gestures are often the ego's theatrical attempts at self-redemption. Small, honest gestures are how the heart turns toward its own life. Fourth, remember the body is not a servant to the mind's ideals, it is a partner. Walk not as a technique, but as an agreement with the earth. Eat not as a moral drama, but as a conversation with hunger. Sleep as a returning wave. The more you trust these simple movements, the less you will reap. Require elaborate programs to justify your existence. You find a rhythm rather than a regimen. Regimens are fine when they serve rhythm. They become tyrants when they replace it. Try this short ritual at the thresholds of your day. At waking, at noon, and before sleep, pause for 30 seconds and silently say, "Nothing to fix, everything to feel." Then notice whatever arrives, pleasant or not. You are training the mind to stand down from its patrol duty. It resists at first, it sniffs for enemies. But with repetition, it begins to enjoy a coffee break. The patrolling reduces, the square softens, and the citizens of your inner city feel safer to emerge. Gratitude, sadness, curiosity, a sudden urge to hum. In relationships, the belief in brokenness is most cunning. We approach others as repair projects, thinly disguised as love. "I only want what's best for you," we say, while secretly wanting what is best for our image of them. To practice non-fixing in relationship is to listen with the same hospitality you offer yourself. You ask, "What is it like to be you today?" And you mean it. You do not convert their answer into a plan. You trust their river. Paradoxically, this trust cultivates change. People alter most gracefully in the presence of being seen, not in the shadow of being judged. You learn to be a gardener rather than a sculptor, to water, to wait, to rejoice in the unpredictable blossom. Work, too, can move from fixing to flow. Many are stuck in the office of perpetual remediation, trying to prove worth through overextension. When you drop the premise, "I am broken," productivity becomes a dance, not a penance. You set clear boundaries because you are no longer bargaining for a stamp of value from an invisible auditor. You say yes from your lungs and no from your spine. The result is not laziness, but precision, a focused effort that ends when it is enough, making room for renewal. Real creativity thrives in that room. It is the silence between notes that allows the melody to breathe. When setbacks arrive, as they do, you can meet them under a new banner. Instead of, "What does this say about how defective I am?" ask, "What does this reveal about what is moving?" The question shifts the center from identity to process. A lost job may reveal a cycle whose time has ripened. A conflict may reveal a truth that was shy. An illness may reveal a demand to rest. None of this romanticizes suffering. It dignifies it, and dignity is the antidote to shame-based fixing. Dignity bows to what is here and then acts lightly, as one who trusts gravity. A word about discipline, lest we mistake acceptance for drift. Discipline is devotion, not self-punishment. It is how love behaves when it cares about a direction. The discipline of practice, of showing up for your art or your studies, is not an admission of defect. It is a celebration of participation. The river flows, and you bring your oar. When discipline is grounded in love, it bends but does not break. It adapts to seasons. It forgives missed days. It returns as naturally as hunger returns. Finally, cultivate a tenderness. Humor about your humanity. Humor is not mockery, it is perspective. It is the light at the edge of the cloud. Laugh gently at the mind's melodramas, at the way it clings to a preference as if the cosmos depended upon your coffee being the right temperature. This laughter lets air into the room, and in fresh air, problems find their right size. A great many dissolve without needing a committee meeting. Thus, the practical way is not a secret staircase, but a clear floor. You keep it clear by noticing, breathing, telling the plain truth, honoring the body's rhythms, trusting relationships to unfold, working with devotion instead of penance, meeting setbacks as revelations, and smiling at the tight little fist that loosens when it remembers it is just a hand. Now we turn to the subtle revolution that these shifts invite. Inner transformation without the mythology of self-repair. Transformation here is not the violent makeover of a condemned house. It is the maturation of a living tree. The ego's architecture is built from measurements and mirrors. It maintains itself by comparison, fueled by the conviction that it must become something else to be permitted to rest. In contrast, awareness is spacious prior to measurement. It is the open field in which the architecture rises and falls. To discover yourself as awareness is to realize that the house you are trying to fix stands inside a sky that requires no scaffolding. What then is the ego? Not an enemy, but a function, a useful mask worn for the play of relationship and responsibility. Trouble begins when the mask forgets the face. The forgetting is not a sin, it is a trance. Awakening is simply the moment the face smiles behind the mask and the mask softens. You still play your roles, parent, partner, worker, artist, but you no longer seek final validation from the applause. The play itself becomes the delight. You bow when the scene ends, not because you deserve grace, but because grace is what bows. Letting go of the ego is therefore not a demolition, it is a loosening. The grip relaxes. The belief that I am the doer dissolves into the sensation that doing is happening. You discover that thoughts think themselves like birds that fly without a committee, and feelings flow if you do not dam them with commentary. This loosening has profound consequences. Without the weight of self-judgment, courage appears, not as bravado, but as transparency. You can say, I don't know. And in that admission, intelligence flows in. You can say, I was unkind. And in that confession, kindness returns. Spiritual freedom is not a special state. It is the absence of compulsion to be in a special state. It is the ordinary revealed as extraordinary by the removal of the veil of contempt. Contempt says this is not enough. Freedom says this is. From that is, an immense power arises. The power to attend, to love, to create, to respond. The meaning of life ceases to be a riddle with a hidden answer and becomes the nectar of participation. Meaning is not discovered like a buried coin. It is minted in the act of living, traded in the marketplace of moments. There is too the question of death, which haunts the fixer. If I do not make myself acceptable, what will become of me when I vanish? But the self you are trying to fix is already vanishing moment by moment. Every breath is a small death. Every exhale is a release of what you cannot hold. Observe that life has woven dissolution into its very fabric. Leaves fall, tides recede, seasons turn. You are not separate from this rhythm. Death is not theft. It is the clearing that makes room for song. When you feel this, not as an idea but as the texture of the day, a gentleness enters. You cherish without clinging. You love without a ledger. You offer your presence as fully as a candle offers its light, not to outlast the night, but to be itself while night and light interpenetrate. The human condition, so often described as a problem, is better approached as a pilgrimage of noticing. We are creatures who can be aware of being aware, and in that doubling mischief and magic arise. The mischief is self-obsession. The magic is self-transcendence. To transcend is not to leave, it is to include. You include your fear and thus stand beside it. You include your desire and thus are not driven by it. You include your history and thus are not trapped by it. Inclusion is the opposite of fixation. Fixing isolates. It declares an offending part and wages war. Inclusion gathers. It declares kinship and listens. In such listening, even the most stubborn knot becomes interesting, and interest releases the knot more surely than force. As clarity deepens, you begin to see that truth is not a possession, but a relationship. It is a living resonance between what is here and the consciousness that greets it. When the greeting is warm, truth speaks. When the greeting is cold, truth hides behind defense. To live in truth, then, is to warm the room with curiosity. This is why children are often wise. They have not yet learned to be ashamed of their wonder. You can relearn this, not by imitating childhood, but by dropping the performance of adulthood that confuses seriousness with wisdom. Wisdom can be light on its feet. It laughs easily, cries when needed, and accepts the terms of the day with dignity. Let us close in the manner of a slow tide, drawing the water over the sand one last time. Sit as you are, in the chair you already occupy, in the room that has been waiting for your full arrival. Listen to the hum behind all sounds, the quiet carrier wave that holds the world's music. Allow the breath to come and go like a door that opens and closes on well-oiled hinges. Feel the body as weather, cool or warm, tense or relaxed, and receive it the way the horizon receives clouds. If a thought arrives to report an emergency, you must fix this now or else. Smile as you would at a child's dramatic tale. Place a hand on your chest, if you like, and say softly, "Nothing to fix, everything to feel." Allow this sentence to dissolve into sensation. Allow even the one who allows to dissolve like salt in water. From here, let a simple curiosity unfold. What is this moment before I name it? What is this breath before I claim it? What is this I before it tightens? Do not answer. Let the question be a bell whose ringing continues long after the strike. Let it lead you not forward in time, but inward into the intimacy that has no center and no edge. In that intimacy, see whether brokenness can find a foothold. It cannot, because there is no edge to break. There is only a play of forms on a seamless field, 1,000 gestures of one dancer. When you rise, do so as water takes the shape of the cup without losing its essence. Meet your tasks with the same spaciousness that met this moment. The email, the crying child, the traffic light. Offer your words as gifts, not as leverage. Accept the day's refusals as part of its music. And if you forget and begin again to hammer at yourself with old tools, notice. Put the hammer down. Listen. The river will remind you of its course. Nothing was broken but belief. Lay it gently on the shore and watch it dry in the sun until it becomes so light that a breeze can lift it into the sky, where it becomes what it always was, a passing cloud, admired and then forgotten. You are the sky.